Funding the Bozeman Police Department has been a topic of discussion over the last few weeks. Today, we find out where that budgeted money goes.
And with the primary over Montana's U.S. Senate race starting to heat up with hard-hitting ads and campaign rhetoric, coming up, what to expect in the Steve Daines versus Steve Bullock race.
6:30 here, back on Montana This Morning. Caitlin Corbett, Chet Lehman, and Matt Elwell. What else is starting to heat up? The weather.
Oh,
it's gonna be
finally
pretty warm.
Feeling like summer, not only because of the calendar, but all the way around. Like you said, 4th of July, right around the corner.
Oh, I know, crazy.
Temperatures this morning into the 40s for most of the area. 34 in West Yellowstone, among the coolest. Big Timber sitting at 50, 54 in Helena. I don't expect to see much in the form of clouds today. This is what we're going to see. Bright sunshine, mild temperatures, daytime highs into the 80s. I expect our daytime highs today to be around 10 degrees warmer than what they were yesterday. But we do have a cool down on the way, including some rain showers. I'll, of course, break that down for you coming up in just a little over 10 minutes.
Thank you for that, Matt. The Bozeman City Commission met well into last night to continue discussion about the city's 2021 budget.
MTN's Gabby Crevitt helps break down the requested budget going towards the Bozeman Police Department.
One aspect of the budget that's getting lots of attention this year is funding the Bozeman Police Department. And today we spoke with Bozeman PD's Chief of Police to find out how that budgeted money is divvied up.
The Bozeman Police Department's budget can be broken down into 3 different categories: personnel, operations, and capital. Personnel covers staff salaries and makes up the largest part of the budget. There's some differences between last year's personnel budget and this year's requested amount.
The difference this year in the submitted budget in personnel, for example, is a request for an additional school resource officer, and that's been tied to the opening of the new high school. And then as well as a part-time police officer position for a position that is assigned to do court security in the municipal court.
The request for personnel funding is up from $7.6 million to $8.2 million. Chief Crawford says there were no major changes to operation costs, but the budget does ask for around $13,000 more than last year.
Kind of the 4 big categories of expenses for us within our operating budget are contracted services is our biggest one, and that includes things like a contract we have with the Heart of the Valley Animal Shelter for animal control services. Another one is our community-based crisis response program, paying for that, as well as medical services to Bozeman Deaconess Health, and then also like, for example, psychological services for our background checks.
The request for capital funds for 2021 is down from last year, from $458,000 to $274,000.
Capital are larger, more expensive, more permanent items. And in the case of the police department, they're generally vehicles or other high-dollar items.
Bozeman PD says a lot goes into requesting a budget, especially when considering the city's rapid growth.
We reduce in some areas and then increase in others as we determine kind of what those costs are in the current year when we start budgeting for the next year.
In Bozeman, Gabby Crevitt, MTN News.
And in other city news, last week the Bozeman City Commission received more than 400 written comments about the 2021 budget. That's the most engagement the commission says it's ever seen on that topic. Most of that interest went towards the discussion about funding the Bozeman Police Department. Many who voiced their opinions at that meeting and wrote letters to the commissioners said they would like to see less spending going towards the police department and more going toward the social services that promote mental health, public transportation, and helping victims of domestic abuse. Bozeman City Commissioner Terry Cunningham said the commission has heard the public and their concerns and says the commission will be discussing amending that proposed budget.
You're going to see a commission, I think, engaged in investment in social services. I've proposed a position, a social services manager position within the city that I'm hoping my colleagues will take on, and we're going to be, I hope, investing in social services such as Haven and the Help Center and streamlined buses. So we are hearing what people are saying about social services, and I think you're going to see a responsive commission tonight.
The Bozeman Police Department's funding makes up 8% of the city's proposed 2021 budget.
Shifting gears just a bit here at 6:34, our EW Scripps Washington correspondent held a wide-ranging interview with President Trump yesterday that included a pledge that Americans will get another round of stimulus checks.
It's one of several topics the president talked about with our political reporter, Joe St. George.
On Saturday night, you said that you told your staff to slow the testing down to improve the numbers. Does that mean someone watching this right now on their local news is not going to get a test because you asked your
We do more testing than any country in the world by far, 25 million tests. Other countries do 1 million. Every time you do a test, as you do more tests, it shows more and more cases. So we're so far advanced, both in terms of the quality and the amount, and we're doing all these tests and it shows cases. If other countries aren't doing, or if we did slow it down, we wouldn't show nearly as many cases.
But did you ask to slow it down?
If it did slow down, frankly, I think we're way ahead of ourselves, if you want to know the truth. We've done too good a job.
I have a lot of viewers in Florida, Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan, who are still struggling economically, sir. They spent all of that first stimulus check. Are you going to get them a second stimulus check?
Yeah, we are. Look, we had this...
When are you going to get it?
We had this going better than anybody's ever seen before. We had the best job numbers, the best economics, the best economy we've ever had. And then we had the virus come in from China, and now we're rebuilding it again. We will be doing another stimulus package. It'll be very good. It'll be very generous. And
how much? How much? People want to know.
You'll find out about it. You'll find out.
When are you going to do it? When are you going to announce it?
I think over the next, I think it's going to be bipartisan. I think it's going to be over the next couple of weeks, probably.
This morning you tweeted about how mail-in ballots will be fraudulent. Any specific evidence? Where is the specific evidence that there are
thousands of cases all over? Thousands. I don't like the system. An example. All over the country you have thousands of cases. A friend of mine gets a ballot. His son, unfortunately, passed away 7 years ago. He gets a ballot for his son to vote. That's one case, but there are thousands and thousands of cases.
And Montana has one of the most watched U.S. Senate contests in the nation this year, with Governor Steve Bullock challenging GOP incumbent Steve Daines. So far, the high-stakes race has been fairly quiet, but that's all about to change. MTN Chief Political Reporter Mike Dennison tells us more about where this race stands and what to watch for in the months ahead.
Now that the primary election is behind us, Senator Daines and Governor Bullock are ready to rumble, but part of their appeal to voters sounds remarkably similar.
I've been recognized as one of the most bipartisan, most effective senators.
Well, Montana voters have seen how I've actually brought people together to get things done, and that's Democrats and Republicans.
Both men are aiming to capture swing voters in the political center, who usually decide close elections in Montana. Yet there are clear differences between the candidates, their campaigns, and message. Daines, a former executive for a Bozeman software development firm, says the election is about jobs and rebuilding the economy, where he has firsthand experience.
I'm the only candidate who knows how to actually create jobs and grow businesses. I spent 28 years in the private sector before getting in public service. We can't turn towards socialism. I think this election is going to be about who can best create jobs and bring back our jobs from overseas.
One of Daines' first campaign ads also takes after China over the coronavirus and jobs, a script being followed by many Republican Senate candidates across the country. He says he wants tax credits for companies who bring jobs from China back to America. Governor Bullock says it's time for a national infrastructure bill to help create jobs, but he'll be harping on health care and criticizing Daines for his votes to repeal the Affordable Care Act and not doing much to lower drug costs.
I mean, the idea that Costco or Walmart can negotiate prescription drug prices, but the federal government won't even do it because they're captured by the drug industry. Those are simple, easy steps we ought to be able to take.
Daines and Bullock also will be debating the true impact of the 2017 federal tax cut passed by Republicans.
When you think of who really benefited from the $1.3 trillion of debt from these Trump tax cuts, it's not mainstream Montana.
Cutting taxes and putting more money in the pockets of hardworking Montanans, in the pockets of small businesses, is key.
And let's not forget something else, the Trump factor. The president likely will come to Montana to campaign for Senator Daines. Will that help him? Will Governor Bullock take on the president in Montana? We'll find out. Reporting from Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
As the general election campaign for Montana's open governor's seat kicks into gear, Republican Greg Gianforte starts with a big financial advantage over Democrat Mike Cooney. Yet the two candidates weren't that far apart when it came to campaign fundraising during the past month. Congressman Gianforte raised $248,000 in campaign funds during that period, compared to about $207,000 for Lieutenant Governor Mike Cooney. Still, Gianforte has raised a whopping $3.8 million for his campaign so far. That's compared to about $1.1 million for Cooney. Gianforte also has already spent nearly $3.3 million on his campaign and still had almost $600,000 left in his campaign account last week. Cooney starts the general election campaign with about $169,000. Gianforte's fundraising total includes $1.5 million of his own money. The race also has a Libertarian and Green Party candidate, neither of whom have raised much money.
6:40 now. The Madison County Sheriff's Office is still looking for a suspect in a Norris business burglary that took place on Saturday. Sheriff's Office was able to share these photos with us. Deputies tell us he allegedly stole a vehicle in Three Forks, drove it to JR's Tires, stole from that shop, then stole a different vehicle and drove off. If you have any information, please contact the Madison County Sheriff's Office at 406-843-5301.
And of course, we'll continue to follow that. Hopefully somebody out there has seen something and
absolutely
can get that to the Sheriff's Office.
And just call it in and they'll see what they can do with it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
6:40, we're taking a break, but up next, the FDA says some hand sanitizers made in Mexico are too dangerous to use. Coming up, find out why you shouldn't use those products and what those brands are. And first, here's a look ahead to CBS This Morning.
Good morning. First on CBS This Morning, Gale talks with the head of the Minneapolis Police Union. We're going to have his reaction to the video that set off national protests for police reform and the reforms he'd like to see to help police. Also, the mother of NASCAR's only full-time black driver, that's Bubba Wallace, speaks to us about the racial threat against her son. And see how New York City's Lincoln Center is discovering new ways to reconnect with audiences after the coronavirus forced it to close for the first time in 6 decades. We'll see you at 7.